Welcome back to Ivy Unleashed. Today is such a treat. We are in the house with the one, the only Christina Deering. Christina Deering, we met during an event we were at in Dallas. Andrea was there, but I first met Christina. And after meeting her, I remember running to Andrea and saying, "We've got a shaman. I don't know what a shaman is, but we just got one and life's about to get good."
Yes, welcome to Ivy Unleashed, Christina Deering.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with both of you. You guys, just your souls ignite mine. And I'm just so grateful to land in the space with each of you and everyone that's listening.
Yes. And I always like to say this when I really feel this, and I truly think you're someone to watch. So if you're listening in your car, cool, but check out, I mean, you can see the teasers on Instagram, but go to YouTube because there's something about being in Christina's presence and hearing her speak and seeing her it's just so powerful. And Brooke and I feel like are students of yours right now. We're realizing how much intuition plays into business and how really tapping into your soul's purpose, which is like your bread and butter to talk about, and how it can not only impact your life, but business too, and your professional path, which is super intriguing. But when Brooke ran up to me and was like, "I got a shaman," I'm like, that's sweet, but I don't even know what that is. Like, what is a shaman? So for everybody that is like me, that has no idea, can you explain what a shaman is and what your work looks like?
Yeah. So that's so funny that you say that because shamanism chooses you. And I remember my own shaman she's a healer. She had shamanism. She reached out to me and was like, you're being called into shamanism. And I had to literally Google, like, what is a shaman? I'm like, sounds good. Like my body was like, yes. My mind was like, huh? So I totally resonate with that. So essentially what a shaman is, it's someone who connects to the spiritual realm to be able to bring down messages and root them down into this physical reality so that we can create from a space that's in alignment with our soul. So there's different forms of shamanism. There's like herbal shamanism where there's using different medicines to heal, things of that nature. But the way that I really do it, and granted, I do that in my, like, I'll use like herbs to heal and things of that nature, but the way that I do it in my own practice is I'm able to connect to your spirit guides and bring down messages that your soul and your spirit guides most desire for you to know. And so it's really powerful because sometimes we get really tripped up in the I shouldn't, I should do business this way, I should create because this is how, someone else did and they're making 7, 8 figures. So if I copy paste it, maybe I will too. But the goal is actually build it in alignment with your soul. That's how you have the vitality to build it. That's how you're actually able to build it in a way that you want to show up, build it in a way that you're the lighthouse so your people can find you. And so it's so important for us to shine as authentically as possible. So with shamanism, I'm really able to tap into your authenticity, bring it forward, and then you pressure test it through your body and you're like, "Ooh, yeah, that's mine. That feels juicy." And then they're like, and it just kind of awakens parts of yourself that might be currently sleeping, if that makes sense.
Ooh.
Yeah. As you're speaking, what I'm thinking is energy. What feels energetically in alignment with you, the work, the projects that you're doing.
Yes.
And for you, just watching you, you're such a spiritual being. And, you said shamanism chose you. Were you always spiritual, or how did you even get connected with a shaman? Like, let's go way back to how this journey really began for you.
Yeah. So there's like twofold to that. One, I think I was when I was first born. Like when I think back to some of the things that I did, like I facilitate light language. So I remember when I was younger, I would just make up languages and I just thought I was like just being cute. And now I'm like, oh my God, I was speaking light language before I like shut it down. And people were like, yeah, that's not real. So when I think back to when I was really young, yes, there were parts of me that were alive and awake. And through this life experience, I do feel like that was shut down to the point where I was like, what is my intuition? I can't hear it. I don't understand it. I wish that I was gifted like this psychic. I wish I could tune in. So I had completely shut those things down. I thought I had to outsource it. I thought I had to go to other people to figure that out. But at some point when I was in my career in marketing, I just realized there was a part of me that just kept feeling more and more almost like dead. Like it was like I kept making more money. I kept getting more of this, like higher titles. And I was like, I just feel like there's something more. It was like I couldn't really grasp it yet, but I knew that this wasn't it. And this was supposed to be it, right? I was like, wait a minute. I checked all the boxes, like why is this not feeling the way I thought it should? And so it kind of set me on this spiritual awakening where I was like, what does the spirit within me actually want? not what does my mind and my mom want, right? It's like, well, wait a minute, what do my parents and what do my friends and what does society want for me? I was like, that's not working for me anymore. Like, I'm just not fulfilled. And so I went on this kind of spiritual awakening of like, who is Christina? What does she want? Like, what excites me? And to your point, like you were just saying, you were like, the energy, what feels expansive? Because a lot of what I was doing felt really constricting. And that was a signal to me. My body was telling me, like, this is not for you anymore. This isn't for you. So I started to follow what felt expansive. And each of those were breadcrumbs that then led me to first, it was like crystals, then it was numerology, then it was like, I'll go to a psychic. And then it was like, these big spiritual awakening moments that suddenly brought me to my knees where I was like, I have to find other tools to rebuild.
And I don't know if it was a reel I saw or a podcast that I listened to of yours, and New Unlimited. Oh my gosh, amazing podcast too. Where you, for the first time, like had a spiritual situation where I think you channeled your dog. Or something. I don't even know the words to put on this, but can you let's go there. I want to hear how this happens. Like the first time you actually feel like, okay, a spirit guide is here, or I channeled someone from the other side. Like, how did you know that you were doing that, and where were you, and what happened? Tell me everything.
Yeah, amazing. So this is a really big moment, and it's the moment that was one of my biggest spiritual awakenings. Is in 2018, I had reached out to a psychic for the first time. My friend had gone to her. 10 out of 10 recommend only going to someone that a close friend of yours that you like, know, and trust, that you're like, ooh, I want to do life like them. Go to only the people that they recommend, right? Like I wouldn't go into a storefront personally. And so my friend had recommended her. So I was like, I've never seen a psychic. I don't know what that means, or I know kind of what it means, but I'll make an appointment. So she was like, yes, I have an appointment 8 months in advance, like 8 months from now. And I'm like,
God.
I think I'll be available. Let me put you down. So I was like, what the heck? So I put this appointment on. I totally forget about it. Next thing you know, my dog, who was 14 and a half, she stopped eating. And it was like that thing where it was like the demise started happening, where it was like, but it happened like instantaneously. It was like she actually one night we woke up and she had passed out. So we took her into the emergency room, and all these things started happening. And over the course of 4 days, it got to the point where we had to actually put her down. And the day that it happened was the day that my appointment landed. And so I had reached out to her and I was like, hey, I just had to put my puppy down. Um, I've never done this before. I don't know. What do you recommend? Because I'm like, do I need to be in the right mindset to go to you? Like I just had no idea. And she was like, it's totally up to you, but I want you to know I have an agreement with the universe that says these appointments land on the days that you need them most. And I remember being like, okay, the hair on my arm is like sticking straight up. Like I need to be there. I don't know what's there for me, but I know that I need to be there. So when I walked in, the first thing that she had said to me was like, lady wasn't a puppy, right? She was like 14 and a half. And I was like, just instantly started bawling because I was like, what's happening? And when I had walked in, she had this piece of paper in front of her with all of these channeled messages from Lady. Her name was Lady. And she knew that how she had passed away, which was like 4 separate things that were stacked on top of each other very quickly. You can't guess these things, right? It was like crazy, the things. And so she knew exactly how she had passed away. She had all these messages that were coming through her from Lady. I mean, I like in my body, I was like, this is Lady. She's talking directly to me. And I realized in that moment, I'm like, oh my God, our relationship isn't ending. It's changing form. Like, so her soul is still with me. I just need to figure out how to communicate with her in maybe a different way now. So it was like the most liberating. It was the hardest day, one of the hardest days I've ever had. And simultaneously, like, cracked my heart wide open to like, oh, there's so much more at play here that I just never, ever considered before. It was a beautiful experience.
It sounds like that showed you what's possible.
Yeah.
Being able to channel. So I'm curious how you've now channeled for other people, maybe yourself included. Like, what does that look like?
So yeah, because for a really long time I was like, oh, it's just for other people. Like I can't do it, and so it's like going to the gym. Like you guys are really familiar with. It's like working out. It's a muscle that you have to start building. It's not going to happen overnight. And so, or maybe it will. I don't want to put any stories out there, but for me, it was something I had to develop. And so it was like what I found to be really empowering. And the way that it worked best for me was I will close my eyes and I will get out a pen and paper or journal, and then I will open up and protect my lines of communication, and I will set the intention that only that serves my highest good and must also be of the highest vibration can start to give me messages. So setting those two are really important, because you don't just want to be like, I'm wide open, whoever the fuck wants to talk to me, like, come on in. It's like, no, let me like put some some guardrails here. Like, I want it highest vibration and highest good, because sometimes the highest good doesn't feel good. So I want them to be both. Right? We know those moments where it was like, well, I guess I needed a kick in the face to learn the lesson. We don't need that. We can learn through love. So I asked for both of those. And then I just wait, and I'll ask a question. So how should I move forward in business? Or how can I start to make money doing this? Or what is my purpose? You can ask big questions or specific ones. Should I go on this podcast? Should I go on this trip? And then, for the sake of just having fun and playing, whatever comes to your mind, all the imaginative, quote unquote, imaginative things that come in, like you may hear the word Jesus, you may witness a presence that feels like Jesus, you may witness, what feels like an all knowing presence, like God, whatever it is, pretend for the sake of the exercise, that's it. Jesus is in the room. Awesome. Hi, Jesus. So I literally write down, hi, Jesus. And then I just wait for a response. And then I'll write down what I receive. And then when the way that I know that it's in really deep soul alignment with me, I get body chills, or I just have this, super expanded feeling. And I'll circle it. My eyes are still closed. And I'll go back and forth until I feel complete. And then I'll say, thank you, protecting my lines of communication now and closing this down. And then I'll read what I wrote, and it always usually surprises me. Like when I'm writing it, I'm channeling it, it feels like, oh, sure, whatever. Like, yeah. And then I'll read it back and I'm like, that's profound. Like that didn't come from my mind. That feels like really important. Or if I'm triggered about something, it's really powerful too, because all of a sudden I'll get like the highest perspective on something where I'm like, that definitely didn't come to my mind, because my mind wants to do something different. But this is telling me like, oh, wow, this is really, really interesting. Like that's true. That feels true for me. That's really helpful to break through it. So that is a tangible way to start practicing, channeling and things of that nature. I think that was a really fun one for me. And so for what I started doing too is follow what you receive. Because that's one thing. It's one thing you'll get the message and then you'll just go on living your life. It's not fun to have a one-sided conversation. So the messages may slow if you don't actually act on what you receive. And then you can start to be like, did that pan out? Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Now I'm getting more and more evidence that it's working. Now I can start to really believe in my quote unquote imagination or what I'm really receiving. And then it gets stronger and stronger, where now I don't have to necessarily do that. I just receive the messages right away. And I'm like, okay, I know exactly what I need to know. It's just like embodied knowledge, or I just receive it instantaneously and it comes through really quickly. But that again is because I've practiced this. So hopefully that's helpful. I went kind of like in depth, but
I love it.
Yeah.
Would be really helpful to say, like, not so whimsically, like how to actually do it.
No, and that's what we all want to know. We want to know the nitty gritty, how you're doing it, the examples. So that's great. Would you say that's how you tap into your intuition? Or when it comes to intuition, you have different examples or principles that you swear by?
So that's what I would call channeling. Okay. And then you'll use your intuition to say what messages are for me. And so the way that I use my intuition is several different ways. So one, kind of what I spoke into earlier, your body. Like if something feels really expansive, follow that. There's a reason your energy is expanding. It's giving you the vitality to build in that direction. Your body is quite literally telling you, I want to give you all the energy that you need to follow it. I want to give you all the joy, the happiness that you need to just keep going, to build even when things break, to keep going, right? And so that's our cue. Oh, I've got all the energy to build this because my soul is like, let's go, right? But when something feels constricting in my body, like people will say like, oh, a tight chest, or my throat is closing, or my stomach feels like it's in knots, that's actually telling me this is either not for me or it's not for me right now. Right. And so those two things I think are really powerful. The caveat I want to mention is you may feel really expanded and scared at the same time. Those usually go hand in hand, to be honest, because the thing that we want to build is something we probably haven't done before. And so just welcome that, start to notice, okay, this is actually telling me I've been living in this self-imposed box and now I'm about to break it down. So know that they can, and they usually do come hand in hand, where it's like, okay, am I really going to do this? But like, oh God, I'm really excited about it. And then you just have the energy to do it anyways.
Oh, right? I feel this.
Just have to calm our nervous system to go after.
I feel this so deeply, like just starting a business. It's
Yeah.
that feeling. And I can totally relate to that, where it's like, it's calling you, it's calling you, it's calling you. It's like hitting you over the head. Like the same idea keeps coming and you're like, but not right now. Or, you know,
Yeah.
and
Who
then
am I
finally,
to?
and then finally when you decide to go for it, it is so
Yeah.
scary, but it's like the energy and this expansiveness overpowers the fear. It's like, it's go time now, which
Yes.
is tricky and explains also why you'd be so powerful to be someone's coach, to kind of hold your hand to this. Like, yes, this sounds scary, but
Yeah.
your intuition's, it's coming at you and it's trying to tell you something.
100%. And I think it's really powerful to step into containers where you can move the fear and move the energy that's having you say, who am I to go after that? Are you sure? I don't know. Because there's energy that we have collected from this lifetime, or if you believe in beyond that, past lives is what some people will refer to it as. There's energy that's saying, you can't go after that. Your mom or dad are like, oh, honey, that's not a real career. No, 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 no. Be a doctor. You can't be that. A singer. Oh my God. What do you think? You know, or whatever the stories are, we collect the evidence from the people around us, from the experiences that we have, from the time we went to sing and our voice cracked, or the time that we, you know, did something and people made fun of us. And that's where that fear is coming from. So it's actually telling you there's something here to move also. You're one, breaking down the self-imposed box, but why is the box there in the first place? It's the stories, right? It's the stories that we're like, I'm comfortably living in the confines of what people have told me and I've told myself is okay. And now we have to break it down to say it's okay to go after that thing. So one, we move the energy that's telling me it's not okay to move after the thing. Two, I want to calm my nervous system to normalize going after the thing. This works with pricing too. Like when you're starting to be like, okay, I usually charge XYZ for my pricing. It's feeling like a little bit energetically, I'm a little depleted. I think I need something more in the space. So usually if you're feeling really depleted based on your coaching calls, something needs to shift if you're a coach. And so sometimes that's raising your prices. Get your body on board before you present a price to a potential client. Because when you normalize it, people buy based on energy 100% of the time. How do I feel about the way that this is being presented to me? Do I feel good about that in my body? Do they feel good about it? Are they scared giving me that number? Now I don't really believe in it. Right? There's something here that's off. But if you're like 100% the value in it, my body is on board. I'm so calm around this number. So are they.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, these practices, what I'm hearing is it allows you to be so confident in who you are, what you want, that it's like a no-brainer. It's of course I feel this way. Of course this is what I'm going to do in the world. And when you first started chatting, when we first started chatting, you had mentioned, you know, those women who maybe don't know, they know something's not right, like similar to your story, but they're not sure what is the divine purpose. Let's get into that. They know something's not right. They know there's more, just like you did, but how do they discover what that divine purpose is for them?
Yeah, so it's twofold. One, I want to take the pressure off of the word purpose, because I think so often we think we have one purpose for being here, and your purpose will evolve as you evolve. So if someone had told me when I was like 23, you're going to be a shaman and you're going to be healing, I'd be like, whoa, that's like too much too fast. There's no way. I don't know what that means. I might actually step away from that, you know, life experience because I wasn't ready to receive it. So your purpose will evolve as you evolve. And then tactically, what I did when I was first like, I don't even know myself. What do I want to do? Like, do I have any skills that translate? I literally took quizzes online where I was like, I like to do this. I like to do this. I like to do this. Based on your personality and the way that you answer these questions, here are 10 possible careers that would be in alignment with what you just shared. Like that was very tactically how I first started out. And it was like, you know, life coach, counselor, therapist, minister, motivational speaker, singer, actress, all these things. And there were some things on there that I was like, that terrifies me, but it really intrigues me. And other things on there that I was like, okay, you know what? This is really exciting. And it feels like tangibly I could do this next. So I'm just like life coaching was the one that I had picked out of that, where I was like, I'm just going to study what would it take to become a life coach. And I started going down this path of breadcrumbs. Like, let me understand what it would take to be a life coach. So then I hired one. And then I got to know, how did that feel? You know, what is she doing? How is she asking questions? And so from there, it was like really beautiful because I was like, well, wait, I could do that. That's not as scary as I thought. When we have like blue skies, sometimes it's like, where do I even begin? breadcrumbs. Follow each and every one of those breadcrumbs. It's like your intuition coming in to say like, here's your next clue. Here's your next clue. And your intuition is doing it, your soul's doing it in a way that is digestible for you at the time to build on top of it. Because we need the one piece to add the next piece. And oftentimes we're like, I just want the whole puzzle. And it's like, you wouldn't know what to do with the whole puzzle, right? Like build so that you can actually allow yourself to get the stability to add the next piece, the stability to add the next one onto that.
Yes. What I keep thinking about too is just knowing you and knowing so much about your life, of how you're still able to do this in the midst of things you go through. Like, Brooke and I are in our purpose right now, but like life happens, we get sick, things happen with our relationships in our life, and you have to keep going. And so I'm curious for you, like following this path, when life happens, when things kind of get in the way, how you get yourself back on track, whether it's like following the purpose in a relationship or your purpose professionally or your purpose, in whatever it is, when these things try to kind of get in your way, how you get yourself back on track or stay on track.
Yeah. So a couple of things come to mind. One is, so for instance, about over the last 6 months, I'd had 2 miscarriages. So that both of those really rocked my world. But how I got through those was because, one, I actually had to take a step away. I couldn't serve when I was in such deep despair and sadness and anger, right? Like I was moving through every emotion, so much grief. And so I actually had to cancel my calls until I could get myself to a place where I could show back up. But the way that I did that was, one, I have a healer on retainer. Like, I'm like, you're not going anywhere. Like there's always more. So I am always seeing her for something. There's always triggers that are happening that are guiding me to my next greatest breakthrough. And she was really supportive in that, like holding space. She's also a channel. So she was bringing in information from the other side. So it was like, okay, so just receiving the messages, that was really powerful. I went into some really deep somatic healing, which means like we store trauma in the body. So for me, that meant I was screaming. I was punching a pillow. I was stomping my feet. I was so angry that one, it happened, and one, it happened again. Right. And so I was like, it was living in the cells of my body. And you can't serve from that place. Like the depths of that despair, I couldn't show up to my calls at least the first day or two. So I had to take at least 2 days to be like, I need to move this massive energy. I need space to grieve. Now, because I let myself go to the depths of hell and back, like I didn't hold back. I was like, I'm going to go to wherever this wants to take me. If I want to scream, I'm going to scream. If I want to just cry, I'm going to cry. If I don't feel like I can cry, but I know that I need to, I'm going to put on Sarah McLachlan and I'm going to start crying, right? Like whatever I need to do, like in the arms of an angel, I'm just going to right now just break down because I know I have energy I need to move. And so that was really supportive to start to move that sort of energy so that I could show back up and serve. Now, the other caveat is we don't have to be perfect or fully healed because we never will be either of those things to then serve. So then come Monday, I was like, I want to focus my energy out again. I want to be able to serve. That's going to feel really good for me, and because I'm living in such alignment and my purpose is so deeply, it just like, it fills my soul so much. I wanted to step back into that space. And so I was like, I'm ready. So that for me was something where it was like, it totally took me off the rails and I met myself there. I didn't just pretend like it didn't exist. And I went as deep as it was willing to go. And then I was like, and while I'm still grieving, because there was a part of me that still was, I still want to show up and serve because I'm so deeply in alignment with my purpose, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. And I keep thinking like you've built this escape-free life. I feel like you're so courageous and so open and bold and brave to, it takes balls to be courageous and be like, okay, I'm going to hear from spirit guides like,
Totally.
or like,
yeah.
And it takes balls to step away from a corporate job with good money and good titles and be like, never in my life did I even know what a shaman is. And here we go, because it feels right. Like it takes courage to go on this new path that most people aren't going on. And so I just want to send you gratitude for following that, because you are igniting a path for us and lighting us up and getting us excited about really just letting it all come in. Like what is speaking to me and what is this? And it feels a little woo-woo-y, but like, okay, we're going to try it. And because you're doing it now, you're creating space for us to do it. And it it's so freeing to be just your
Yeah.
full self.
Yes. Yeah. And I always say like our truth is evolving too. So it's this idea of like, you know, it's not my truth until it absolutely is, and my truth can always change in a moment. And so when I get the evidence that something's working for me, it's my truth now.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I try something and I'm like, well, that netted out great. That was fun. That brought me to a miracle. I think I believe in this now. I think I want to do that more versus the labels or the this is bad or this is wrong. Says who? Who am I subordinating to that I'm letting myself believe that this is wrong? You know? And so for me, it's always a question of who am I subordinating to that I'm saying I should or shouldn't do something. Says who?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the sacred rebel in me is like, I'm doing the opposite now, but I have to pressure test that too and be like, okay, but is the opposite my truth also though? You know, so that's part of the experience too, is just really connecting to like, what is my deepest soul aligned truth? Because sometimes people will say things and I'm like, that's interesting. That's not my truth. Not right or not wrong. It's just not mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we can start giving ourselves more permission to not have to agree with what other people are saying and to not make what other people are saying wrong either, there's so much freedom in that because then we can do that for ourselves. Hey, I don't really care if you agree with it or not. It's my truth and it works really well in my life. So I'm still going to share it. It feels good. I'm not going to hold back anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And I want to talk about blocks and breakthroughs because you kind of hinted on this, and everyone has blocks, right? Different things
Yeah.
are like, oh, it's the thing I know I need to do, or I want to do, or it's calling me, but I'm not doing it. And it just feels like this big block. And you talk about how that is a potential breakthrough for you. And I would love for you to just talk about what you've seen maybe with your clients or yourself on how those blocks actually could be a huge breakthrough, or you're on the verge of a breakthrough with them.
Yeah. So when we notice the self-imposed like walls or blocks or triggers or the things that are like, I can't, who am I to, or whatever that story is, that is literally telling you that's a block right there. That's connected to some story. It's not the trigger. Because the way that I always describe it is a trigger is like basically interacting with a pan that's already hot. I touched it and it burned me. It's not the burn. It's not that I touched it. It's not that interaction. It's the fact that the pan itself was already hot. So let's look at the pan. Let's look at the root. Where is that coming from? That's where you're going to have the deepest level of healing because that's all on a subconscious level. So I always kind of see like talk therapy as like step one because you're activating what do I consciously know, which is 10% of the battle, right? Or 10% of kind of your experience. Okay, so now we got to go deeper because I'm just talking about things and it's not taking me as far as I know that I can now. I have to go into the subconscious. And so I have people all the time be like, I've been working on this for 40 years in therapy and I don't even resonate with it anymore because we moved the energy from my body completely that it's just not even mine. It's outside of themselves now. So we have to move the calcified energy because right now it's in the body, it's blocking us somewhere. If let's say we said something when we were younger, we got reprimanded, that's probably calcified energy in our throat, right? Some people call it the throat chakra. It's the energetic center of our throat, our voice, our deepest truth. So there's calcified energy here. Now we need to move it so that we have a free flow of being able to speak our truth. So that was the block. It's the calcified energy, right? And so the example of this that I always think about is like, if you ever saw the movie Oppenheimer, you know, and this is not a spoiler alert because this is just me, I was curious about how he died from throat cancer. And I was like, if you've seen that movie, you know that he's not speaking his truth. He's holding back. He feels like he can't. He's being reprimanded left and right. It's like, well, yeah, he's got so much energy here that he blocked himself from being able to speak his truth in so many different instances that, of course, the energy calcified there and showed up as cancer, right? So for me, that's just the body telling you, you've got stored energy here. Let's move it, right?
Oof, that's good. What would you say is stored energy in the gut?
Ooh.
Yeah, so the gut can be a two different things, but the gut center, so if you think about that gut that's your sacral, that's your life force energy, that's your creative flow, that's your sexual energy. So oftentimes there's a blockage there. Like for me, I had a lot of gut issues. One, because I had an eating disorder, but that there was a lot more that went into that. That was the trigger. It wasn't the root, right? But two, I was molested as a child. So I was carrying a lot of energy in that area that had to move. And so when I started to actually do the energy healing and started to move that energy that was there, and a lot of shame around sex too, holding all of that energy in that space where it's like sex is bad, you're going to die if you do it, like abstain, or you're a bad person. I just remember having all this shame that was built in that area, so the energy was calcifying, and I had all these emotions that were stored there, that weren't moved. So it started manifesting as like bloating and just like, like what is going on in my body here? Like there's just something here that I need to move. And so for me, that was my individual story of why I had something in the gut that needed to move. It's going to be different for every single person. And I think that's what's so important to think about as you're intuitively healing yourself. Your unique soul's blueprint will be different from other people, which is why it's really powerful to lean into an intuitive healer and not someone who's like, let me prescribe this that I prescribed to the last 27 people who just walked in the door. It's like, that's supporting maybe the symptom, but that's not getting to the root. My root is different from yours. My root is different from the last 12 people, and every single one of their roots is different too. So when we can start to look at the root, that's going to completely change the symptom from actually showing up, because the root has been lifted. The heat on the pan is now off.
Ooh,
I love that.
I do too. And I feel like you have the right physician right now, because she's like open to that. She's like open to, I'm going to give you solutions that like I can give you, but there's something more at work here. And it's like, okay. But she's like, but I can't solve that for you. And like, you will solve this, Brooke. Like you will keep, like she basically is like, keep following the breadcrumbs of what you need for your mental health and your spiritual health. It sounds like, I feel like everybody we talk to that's had chronic health issues, like you're saying, especially like I think about the thyroid is like huge for a lot of women. It's like not knowing who you are or being able to express who you are, or like knowing and then never really becoming who you know you are.
But we were also never given those tools on how to do that, right? That this is why this conversation is so powerful, and the work you're doing is, okay, I know things aren't right, but what do I do? Maybe it isn't talk therapy. Maybe it isn't just seeing my OB or a GI doctor. Like what else is out there that I haven't tapped into yet or could be my answer, right? It's these modalities that I feel like are so foreign and they are against the norm. Like you being a shaman, people are like, excuse me, but you feel so deeply rooted in that.
Yeah.
And because of that, you're giving others permission to do the same.
Yeah. And it's powerful you bring up thyroid, because I'm going to have a woman on the podcast who had thyroid cancer, and she was like, it's because I wasn't speaking my truth. And so much of what she did to heal, and now she's speaking on stages in front of 20,000 people. And she has no throat cancer, or she has no thyroid cancer anymore. And it's like, well, look how much you opened your throat chakra. Like, wow. Like, of course you're healed, because she really leaned into different Eastern medicine and moving the energy. And why are you not speaking your truth? Like, what is the root of that? Let's pinpoint that and move that. She's cancer free. How powerful is that? There's so much that goes into it.
There's so many stories like that too, where it's the spiritual realm is just like, once you tap into it, it's like unlimited potential, which you tie to income and money. And that's like where all my blocks are, where I'm always like, is it okay if I make some money? Like my family comes from very humble beginnings, like generations and generations of being very, very, very poor. And so it's like, I'm not ignorant to the fact that that's at play here, that I'm stepping into something, one, unfamiliar just for my own life, but like for generations. And so I'm curious kind of tips that you have for that kind of a block where, like you're smart, you've got gifts, you've got talents, you're in your purpose, but like you're still a little uncomfortable with matching your soul with an abundance of money.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hear a lot of people that are in the space of like, I just want to help people, so shouldn't I just give it away for free? And so here's how that is actually, I mean, in some instances, we're of service. Like if it makes sense to do certain things for free, to just like have people receive your medicine, in certain instances, absolutely. I'm a giver. We're all givers, right? But the one thing that I think really comes into play is we have to have the energy to give. And if we're giving so much that we have no energy to really show up in the space the way that we know that we can, to really support in the deepest level of healing that someone could receive, it's actually a huge disservice to the person that's receiving the healing. So when we are receiving energy from someone else, that gives us the energy to land with both feet when it's a soul aligned energetic exchange to fully show up and serve that person. And then that allows them to place their energy into the space to really receive what it is that their soul most desires to receive. So it's quite literally just an energetic exchange, because money is just dirty paper and numbers on a screen or numbers written down, right?
Mhm.
That's it. We attach all of our energy to what does this mean about me and what about da 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 da. It used to be cocoa beans, right? Like sacred cocoa beans. Oh my God, if anyone touches these, like I'll kill them, but it was like this idea of like, now we look at cocoa beans, we're like, cool, whatever. There's maybe neutral, right? Maybe people love them. I don't know. But it's this idea of like just neutrality. And so so the thing to think about there is, how are you going to show up to something that's free? Like, let's say you show up to you sign up for a free masterclass. You might or might not go. You're like, I might double book myself. Maybe I'll get a replay. Maybe not. But if I paid $1,000 for a masterclass or even $129 to learn from this person, my energy is in it, right? I'm blocking my calendar. I'm showing up. I want to learn. I'm ready to learn. So that's you saying, I'm ready. I'm putting my energy in the space. It's just a way of saying to the universe, I'm putting energy here. And I'm using this as energy. Money is just energy. And I'm putting it here because this is where I'm desiring to learn. You're going to show up differently. And then the person who's receiving the energy on the other side is going to show up with both feet. They're not going to be like, oh my God, I have 90 things today. And this is my 37th meeting because I'm doing my corporate job and this, and I'm not able to really serve the way I want. And then they show up all frazzled, right? But if they are being well compensated, and what that means is they're receiving energy from other people in a way that feels like it's in alignment with their soul to best be able to serve in those spaces, they're going to show up to the absolute best of their ability. And that's going to be the absolute best medicine you've ever received in that moment. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yes.
Amen. Beautifully said. Yes.
Yeah. And you think about all the things, like everyone who's tuning in, think about all the beauty that you create with money. Money wants to flow through you. What do you use that money for? Organic foods for my family, working out, my gym membership, investing in coaches, investing in things that have me feel good spiritually, going on that trip that I've always wanted to see, going to that place that my kids have been talking about forever. The money is allowing you to energetically be more of you. It allows you to place energy in more spaces that feel like your soul aligned truth. So money just gives you the ability to give more and to be more in alignment with who you are, to be able to say yes to everything that is in alignment with your soul.
Wow. Thank you. I needed this, Christina. Thank you. That was
Amazing. Everything else is
beautiful.
just a story that we have to heal. Yeah.
What practices or tools do you currently use to help keep your energy in that level of abundance?
So a couple different things. What I love to do, so you hear a lot of people talking about tapping to release anxiety and things of that nature. I think tapping is a wonderful tool, and I'll use it to release anxiety. I remember before I knew how to protect my energy, I was on an airplane and I started having a panic attack, which I hadn't had since college. And I was like, oh my God, it's because I'm connecting to everyone else's emotions and thoughts. I wasn't scared to fly, but everyone else was. So the only thing that worked for me was tapping. I tried all these other things. So tapping is really powerful because it calms your body so that your brain can catch up. Now, a way that I like to use tapping is kind of in the opposite. I like to turn it on its head. I will visualize the thing that I want going well. So if I'm going to raise my prices, I'm going to start tapping on these different meridians in my body that tell me that that's normal to charge that. And now I'm normalizing it in my body. My body is calm. I feel so good about that price point that it's now completely normalized. So when I share that price point with someone who may be stepping into that portal, I feel calm about it. I've been here before. Of course, I've already been here. It feels like deja vu because you've already witnessed it. So I was a minister at a wedding this year. And so I then used that to visualize her walking down the aisle, to visualize the family and how happy they were and what a beautiful moment it was. Because for a minute there, I was like, what if I do it wrong? This is such a big day. Oh no, my human was getting in the way. And then I used that tool to be like, God, use me as a vessel. Let me see how this is going to turn out. Oh my gosh, look at her. She's so happy. The whole family is there. They're so connected to this beautiful moment. And then it wasn't about me. It was like God moved through me. And it was so powerful because it was like when it was happening, it felt like deja vu. Of course it's happening this way. Of course. And then my body was calm when things were happening anyways, where it was like the mic wasn't working and it was like, who cares? This is the best day of everyone's life. Like we'll get it working. But it was like because my body was calm, I was able to react to things in a different way too.
So good. So good. You are full of wisdom. I'm so grateful to know you, to give our listeners access to you. Your podcast, You Unlimited, is incredible. So glad you listened to that calling. Will you tell our listeners just a little about the podcast, the work you're doing, where they can find you? Because I know everyone's going to want more of you.
Yeah. So the podcast, thank you, by the way, for that. You've both been on it, which is so fun. So definitely tune in there, especially to their episodes. That was medicine, just everything you guys shared. I've gotten such incredible feedback on. And so the podcast is called You Unlimited. It's a top 10% podcast now worldwide, which to me is just representative of living in alignment with my soul. Like that number made no sense. Why I got there when I did as quickly as it happened made no sense on paper. But because I was following my deepest soul's path, and because I kept healing what was in the way of launching it, that's what made it suddenly be like, oh, this is like my lighthouse. This is me. This is me being so authentic and having these incredible guests in the space bring their medicine in. It was like this beautiful experience of like, because I was beaming my authentic self, it's like that's the lighthouse and people are able to find you so much easier. That's what being in authenticity is. It's a magnet for your people, right? So I just really want to encourage everyone to just follow their authentic truth. Your people will come. And so it's so much fun because I talked to 6, 7, 8-figure entrepreneurs about how they built what they built, how they stumbled along the way of building it. And really we get into the depths of like, okay, but how did you tactically do that? And what was like your deepest low? Like it was like people are just going there in the best way. And so the Scorpio rising in me is like, let's go to the depths of it and let's also laugh. Like we don't have to be so heavy about healing and our, these moments. Like let's talk about how we got through it too. And so it's just really powerful experience of like just medicine coming from all sides and people just being 100% authentic and vulnerable in the space. But we laugh too. It's like it's a beautiful space to just like laugh and bring joy in and just know that we're living our soul's purpose and we're going to stumble along the way, but there's always a way to get back up. So it's really beautiful hearing people's heroes' journeys in that space. So a beautiful space to lean in, to receive medicine. You can find me on Instagram at I am Christina Deering. I'm always sharing, just beautiful things in that space. I go live. I wear wigs. I do something called Woo Woo Wednesdays where I'll throw on a wig and then I just talk about, sometimes seemingly like heavy healing things, but it's light. I mean, people tune in and they're like, what the hell is she doing? And then at some point they're like, wait, but I actually received something and I'm laughing too. And so we have a lot of fun in that space and I'm always giving into that space. So that's a really fun way to play with me too. So I would start in those two places.
You're just an example of like, you really can be yourself and it can translate in the world. Like you were just featured in Forbes and you're woo-woo-y. You're talking about intuition in Forbes and it just shows like that can translate to money. Like everything is connected in all these different ways. I feel like you're really taking a lot of pieces of the puzzles and being like, this can come together. Like it doesn't have to be science or woo. Like it can be all of it. It can be logical. It can be, and we're in the same mastermind where we talk about business and those types of things. And so it's like, yes, you're channeling things, but you're also very tactical and a businesswoman. And so I just think you're proof that you can be a mom, you can be a spiritual healer, shaman, you can be like, you are just, I'm going to come to you for everything.
I love it. I love it. It was so funny when I was talking to the woman at Forbes, she was like, describe yourself. And I was like, well, I'm a shaman. I wear Chanel. I like, and she's like, wait, you're the shaman that wears Chanel? I'm like, yes. Okay. Here's the thing. We can have both. We can be spiritual and be abundant. Like we get to have both if your soul wants that. And so for me, that's my unique medicine. Like for me, that feels good and abundant. And I love feeling the different textures of different materials. I'm just drawn to different things. And so it does not have to look a certain way, right? Like sometimes people think, oh, a shaman must look like this, or a person who wears Chanel is like this. They must be a bad person. Whatever it is, whatever your stories are, just connect to, does that feel good in my body? And if it doesn't, write a new one, release it, right? And then find your own unique medicine and blend of like what is the most authentic version of you.
I love
The
that.
Chanel Shaman. God, that's good. That's real good.
That is good.
She's like, we're dialing that up. I'm like, okay, let's go for it.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, thank you again for your time. We leave our listeners with 3 gold stars, your top 3 takeaways you'd like to share. What comes to mind when you think of yours?
Oh, goodness. Well, I would love to first gift anyone who's listening that might want a little more energy or a little more clarity or a little less fear. I want to gift them a 5-minute energy reset first, just right off the bat. For anyone who's like, I have no idea where to start, I also just want to gift them that. So maybe we can throw it in the show notes because I
Totally.
think my hope and one of my biggest takeaways and one of my favorite parts about all of this is let's make it easy and tactical. Like, let's make it accessible. It doesn't have to be so pie in the sky, woo woo. How do I even make that esoteric thing like a part of my reality? I think that's the beauty of shamanism is like, let's bring the spiritual and let's root it down. So I think one of my big takeaways, one of my highlights is like, let's make it easy and accessible. So I'd love to gift that into the space. I hope that that was supportive for anyone that was tuning in or like these tactical exercises. So my 3 biggest takeaways are like, just follow your most authentic path, follow the breadcrumbs, and your purpose can shift as you shift. You don't have to have one divine purpose. Take all the pressure away from thinking I have to just know my purpose. Where do I even begin? It's too late. All those stories, put those on the back burner for the sake of having fun. That's the big thing. Just follow it for fun. Make it a passion project. That's what I did with my career. I made it a passion project first, and then it started scaling. And then I got my body on board with doing the thing, the quitting. And then I was able to then do this full time, and it started to scale really quickly. And so my biggest takeaways are follow the breadcrumbs, let your intuition lead. And what is your body trying to communicate with you? Drop into your body. That 5-minute reset will help you do that. Drop into your body and notice what feels expansive and notice what feels constricting and honor that because there's a reason why it feels expansive and constricting.
So good.
Beautiful.
I'm excited for this 5-minute one.
I know.
Yes, it's my non-negotiable. I do it every single morning.
Ooh.
It will clear everyone else's emotions. It will protect your energy so you don't take in everyone else's emotions. And it will have you be really clear on what's mine, what's theirs. Okay, amazing. And drop you deeper into your truth.
Oh, I need that. I'm so sensitive to other people's energy.
Yeah, it's
Like
a superpower.
I hear this all the time and I feel it. I'm like, oh, like being in certain rooms with certain people, I'm like, oh God, I can't go in that room. Like, cause I know I'm going to take some of it on and
exactly.
it's tricky. It's a tricky thing to navigate. So thank you for that. All right. And we also do 3 surprise questions, which this whole thing's been surprise.
Yeah, I love surprises. Let's do that.
Unleashing Ivy. So this week for me has been really tough because I'm actually airing an episode on Tuesday. By the time this comes out, it'll be out about my miscarriage. And so recording it and then editing it, I've had to like relive those emotions, which are so heavy.
Yeah.
And a lot of our listeners are women that have been through this or they want a family and it could be a very likely thing that happens for them. So I think it's really powerful when women talk about what gets them through this. And I know you have a whole episode about it, but thinking about, I've heard you talk about souls and I've heard you talk about just, you know, you're a mom to a little boy right now and you have to still function as a mom and business owner. And so I don't know specifically what my question is, but mostly just what's getting you through this time right now and how are you still hopeful for the future?
Yeah. So I talked about the somatic healing. So that's a really important part of it. Finding someone who can help you move the energy, really important part of it. I went to something called Grace too, where I walked into the middle of the circle. You kind of share whatever it is that was needed or whatever, you know, your truth is. And I got a really deep, powerful healing from a shaman in that space too, with the trapped energy was. But the thing that has given me the most amount of hope, apart from what I had already shared, was there are 2 books that they landed at the perfect time. It's called Spirit Babies and Cosmic Bond. And both of those books had me realize, oh my gosh, this baby, for me in particular, was the same spirit that came in and out of these 2 bodies and said, wrong body, wrong timeline. So I know for a fact this baby is coming back. The spirit is coming back. I feel like she's going to be here pretty soon. And because of that knowingness, because of my spiritual connection to her on the other side, because of channeling with her on the other side, I received so much guidance and so much peace that had me realize she's not gone. Our relationship is just in this form right now. There's a relationship already there. I wanted answers. So I found it through those two books. I also found it through opening up and protecting my lines of communication, communicating with her. And through that, I found so much peace because I was like, oh, I don't feel like she's gone forever. I don't feel like they were necessarily deaths. For me, it was like, oh my gosh, I got to actually connect with her and speak with her and better understand like, what is this really all about? And then I realized, oh my gosh, she's coming back and it's not about my body. It's not about all the things that, we're being told left and right. Like, she's coming back. So for me, that's what I needed to connect to what the actual truth was of it. And it's really powerful. Use your body to test the information in there because it's like, spirit, because basically these are channels. The people are channeling information from the spiritual realm of the babies, the spirit babies that want to come in, that are new, or that will come in as a baby, right? And so what does the spiritual realm of babies want you to know? And so it's really powerful because it's like, well, hey, here's the top 10 reasons why you might be having a miscarriage from a spiritual perspective. And then you'll read the different ones and you'll be like, that one feels true for me. That one felt different in my body than the other ones did. And that's how it was for me, where it was like, oh, interesting. So use your intuition to receive the information to then say, what of this is mine? And if none of it feels like it's yours, then maybe channel or do both.
Oh, interesting.
So good.
I want that book right now.
Oh, yeah. Amazon, you'll get it in like 12 minutes.
Yeah. I love it.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So my question is about authenticity and comparison. So I feel like you're in the space of social media. You're in the same mastermind we are. How do you not compare and have that dance between being inspired, seeing what other people are doing to get help, but sticking with your authentic self and quieting that outside noise? What does that balance look like for you?
Mm-hmm. One is noticing when I do compare. Like, I'm human. There will be moments where I'm like, ooh, okay, I'm catching myself comparing numbers, right? This person has 500,000 followers. Like, oh, what am I doing wrong? And then I notice, oh, there's something here for me to heal. That's the hot pan, right? Interesting. Let me unpack that. Let me understand where that's coming from. And so what's really powerful is we're building things, like I mentioned, in a stepping stone sort of way. So just because this isn't where you want it to be yet, doesn't mean you're not building in other ways. And to really start to connect to and acknowledge everything you're still building. Because I think so often we run so quickly and we normalize things so fast that we're like, well, yeah, I mean, I always had that. And it's like, no, you didn't. You built it. And so that's what I think is so fun about, for each of my clients, I have an Akashic record of every single thing that they healed in their session, so they can go back and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe 3 weeks ago I was even resonating with that, because it's so normal for me to be making this money now, or it's so normal for me to be feeling this way, or to have called in my dream relationship now. That was 3 weeks ago, right? Because we normalize things so quickly. So take a minute to pause and really connect to, what am I doing right now that I really want to acknowledge myself for? And the more that we feel on board with like, oh, I'm so grateful for every single way you're showing up today. The way that you're being a mom today, the way that you noticed yourself on edge and you took yourself into the bathroom to just breathe for a second and then come back out. That matters. That really matters in your relationship dynamic with your child. And so witnessing and acknowledging everything that you are doing, to know that each of those is actually a beautiful puzzle piece to get you to what you want. And the other thing that I do too is I'm like, wait a minute. If I think about this, if we're all just, let's think about, I'm a version of, like, so Rumi says this, we're not a drop of the ocean, we are the entire ocean in a drop. If I'm a version of God and you're a version of God and you're a version of God, then you are a beautiful example of what's possible for me right now. Oh my, you're showing me that I could have 500,000 followers. You're showing me that I can make 8 figures doing what I love. You right here, a version of me, is showing me, this avatar right here is showing me that's possible. I'm going to follow the success breadcrumbs now. Like, what are you doing that's different from what I'm doing? And let me connect to my body and see if that's my truth. Because if they're like, I'm taking all my calls at night, and you're like, oh, I'm a morning person, then that part's not your truth, but maybe something else is, right? They're like, no, I do a free masterclass and that leads them into this. And then from there, oh, And then they built them into that. And so they have a funnel somehow. Maybe that's where I can grab a piece that makes sense for my business. So it's starting to notice that success leaves clues, but your personal brand of success will be different. So pull the different breadcrumbs from different examples of God's source universe in a different person, a different avatar, and let those be clues of kind of how you want to build it uniquely for you.
Oh, I love that. It's like taking it and making it an expansive thing. The comparison can be like it's like a different mindset about it.
Ooh, I like that. Ooh, I want to try that. Ooh, not like, oh shit, I should be doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
and to
beautiful.
not like demonize if you do have those moments of comparison, I do too, to just recognize that's a part of my inner child that really needs some healing right now. Like, let me actually connect to that version of me. Like, close my eyes and connect to her and say, like, what do you need right now? You're going to witness probably a really wounded child that's like really sad. And then she's going to start to talk to you. Speak back and forth, reparent yourself. Be so supportive.
Oh, beautiful. All right. And last question. If you could go back and tell younger Christina something, what age would she be and what would you tell her?
Oh, goodness. I would go back to like every year and tell her something. Uh, Probably when I was fresh out of college and I was stepping into my career, and I knew from that moment it wasn't for me. Because I knew I was like, I'm 22 and I want to retire. That's a problem. So I would say use this time to use this time to say that career isn't wrong. I'm not wrong. It's just not mine. And now find what is yours and build on that. And that would have been really powerful to have started to build at 22 what I started building. And I don't know what age it was, maybe 30, or maybe I was like 32. I don't even remember, where I started to actually build what was in alignment with my soul. So to have done that at a younger age when I had just gotten out of college would have been really fun. I would have probably been like even more adventurous at that moment in time too, to be like, screw it. I was already making $12 an hour anyways. Like, might as well, you know? So it was like, why not test and learn? So I would probably go back to that version of me that was fresh out of college and was like, thought that I had to either make money, or thought that I had to either make no money doing what I loved or make a lot of money doing what I hated. I would tell her you can do both.
Oh, I can't wait to listen to this episode again and again and again. I feel like it's so fun. Like, you're so immersed in the conversation, being Andrew and I, and then to re-listen to it, it's such a gift. And you are such a gift.
So are each of you. Thank you.
We leave our listeners, Christina, with a piece of gold, a quote that speaks to you. Would you please share yours?
Oh, I love that. A piece of gold. Let's see. Follow your soul aligned truth. That's going to look completely different from other people's. And to stop asking for permission to follow your soul aligned truth, because other people won't get it because it's not theirs. And that is even more evidence that it is yours. So often we look outside of ourselves to say, should I go after that thing? Is this even feasible? Is it possible? And are usually some of the closest people to us will say, no, absolutely not. But if you had that on your heart and everyone around you is saying no, then that's how you absolutely know that it's yours.
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold.
Dang,
I love it. I love it.
So beautiful. Oh my gosh. I cannot wait for people to listen to this.